carpet of cats over my shoulder, and one of the main cats of this group grooming and cleaning herself. They're all very full-bellied. They've been eating a buffalo. And welcome to our wild part of this earth, our patch of Hyenas Game Reserve here in the Kruger National Park. My name is Mark. Brian is on camera with me this afternoon, and Tara is back in final control. We're heading out on our 3 p.m. Afternoon live safari. We're coming to you live from Africa, and we're sitting with a pride of lion that we found this morning, and we're going to try and see what they're going to be up to for the rest of the afternoon, maybe having to come back here intermittently. Welcome from wherever you are. You're obviously all over the planet, some of you afternoon, some of you morning, some of you still evening. I think it's about 9 o'clock Eastern Standard Time at the moment. We're in a beautiful late summer's day. We went into autumn for a little while, and we've suddenly sprung back into a little bit of summer, which is quite amazing. Temperatures around 29-30 degrees Celsius. I think it's about 84 degrees Fahrenheit. Brian's age and my age.
Fair, not quite.
But a difference to what we saw this morning is that we have got the whole pride here now. This morning we saw 6 cats, if I remember correctly. I stand to be corrected. You're welcome to write into us, and I'll give you the addresses shortly. But I only saw 6 of the cats this morning, and I was getting a little bit confused until one of the viewers pointed out to me that one of the young females had a little bit of a lump on her elbow. I've got a lump on my elbow. I'll show it to you one of these days. Sun's coming out, Brian. I don't know if maybe because she's going to either get hot or she might just decide to move. But we just had this sudden patch of sun coming through the cloud. And, well, I call it lion light. When the sun gets low and there's certain colors out. So this afternoon we've arrived back with the pride, and all 8 of them are here. This is the Nkuhuma pride. She's going to go and flop on top of one of the others. As soon as the sun came out, I thought that she might get active. Well, it's good to see your kidneys are working really well. There's better water at the dam. It goes to show how lions are not really fussy about the water that they drink. This is just a little muddy puddle. Recently filled only from a few nights ago from the rain, but it's still pretty muddy. But their water requirements, and I suppose their constitution, is strong enough to be able to handle this kind of a thing, especially when you consider the state of the carcasses that they eat sometimes. We're going to go a little bit closer. In fact, I think what we'd like to do is maybe go around the other side of them, because I don't really want to sit in front of the water. And she lay down next to that cub and actually lay on its paw, and it actually got a little bit cross. Although being a youngster, she didn't really care very much. They're full of buffalo. They've had a buffalo. There's not really much going to happen with these cats in the immediate future. But for now, I'm going to drive around to the other side so that we can get some better light on them, perhaps, and also get a better view of the whole twin dam. We're at twin dams here at Hyenas Game Reserve in the Great Kruger National Park. And this is not a captive pride of lion. This is a wild pride. They are part of several hundred wild prides of lion that live in the Greater Kruger National Park, millions and millions of acres. That is probably one of the biggest national parks in the world, one of. One in Canada. So it's a little bit of a case of semantics, since we as humans can call things national parks and game reserves, but ultimately they're areas set aside for wildlife, and there are a couple of game reserves or wildlife areas that are not national parks that may perhaps be bigger, so it's a little deceiving on that score. So here we have the pride, very far south for their normal range, for their normal, I don't know if I could call anything normal. This is nature, nothing's really normal. But yes, perhaps a little bit far south for their territory. They would maybe include this as their home range. What Brian is showing you now, the one that's sleeping on the right of your screen, that's the young male of the pride. We can just see his mane starting to grow, and perhaps he'll lift his head for us in a little while. You might be asking how it can be that we're sitting here in an open vehicle and we're approaching these lion like this, and it's really only wild lion that you can do this with. Captive bred lion would be on us in a shot. We won't go into that in too much detail, but being out in the wild and being a very unique area of a very wild area of Africa, there are very strict rules about how people behave, and generation after generation of animals that live here get to learn that we are not really part of their lives, that they still have to get on with their lives no matter what happens to them. Nature has to take its course, and all we can do in the vehicles is watch from the sidelines, bystanders, voyeurs, whatever you want to call it, be a part of their lives. And it has come to the point where, quite miraculously, we don't impact on their lives in such a way that we're able to witness what lion do. And we could sit here for 3 hours now and watch them sleep. But no matter what happens, nothing that we do really will influence their behavior. So we get to be able to watch lion doing what lion do. Now it is quite a warm afternoon. The sun has come out again. Lots of little blue sky patches. I don't believe they're going to go anywhere in the immediate future. But I do believe that there will be other vehicles that would like to come and see them. And so we're going to really enjoy their company, the peace and quiet of their company for a while. And when the game lodges and the safari guides come out with their guests to view them, we'll go off and maybe look for some other things, and then I'd like to come back here a little bit later, because when it starts cooling down, they're going to have digested a lot of this buffalo that you can see has filled their bellies. They might go and drink, or they might decide to take a walk. They might go down into the riverbed. There are a lot of mites, and there are a lot of possibilities, and I would like to be here a little bit later, if we can, to see what one of those possibilities really turns out to be. There's no predicting what they will do. It's funny, I was saying to Brian when we were arriving that I wasn't really sure where they had got to, and all I saw was this big belly sticking out of the grass at the big jackleberry tree. And I said, well, never mind that, I can see the belly. So they have gorged themselves. Interestingly enough, there was a hyena that was seen this morning just after we saw them. Just after they came to drink here at Twin Dams, there was a hyena that came out of the bushes. I'm not too sure which side of the main road called Gowrie Main, but it came onto Gowrie Main, running towards the west with a buffalo leg in its mouth. And that was no doubt part of, or the rest of, or the last of the buffalo that they had killed. To my knowledge, none of the guides managed to find the carcass, and there certainly hasn't been any vulture activity that would be normally associated with a buffalo kill. But it's quite possible that because of the rain and because of the weather that we've been having, vultures haven't been flying. It's been very cool weather. It's very difficult for vultures to fly in the overcast conditions because they need the warm air thermals, these warm currents that keep them aloft, that require very, very little energy to stay aloft. And when it's cloudy, they have to flap their wings a lot, and of course, well, that takes a lot of energy. So I think they might have had a secret buffalo kill somewhere, these cats, that none of us knew about for the last 2 days. It could even be that they caught it in the rain, or just after the rain when it was muddy and it was slippery. But a very interesting question that has come in from Joyce, and Joyce is in Pennsylvania. Joyce, nice to hear from you, and Joyce is very well versed in the different lion prides that occur in this area. Joyce has been part of the drives for a long time. Wants to know what would happen if they were to meet up with the Tsalala breakaway pride, which evidently are quite close. I don't know how close they are, Joyce. I don't think they're too close, but I might not have the same information that you do. And very often, actually, some of our viewers have better information than I do, and I live here. And it's wonderful that we're able to share things in real time in that regard. What would happen would be probably quite a fight, Joyce. I don't know if the Tsalalas have ever met up with the Nkuhumas. Their territories or their home ranges, I suppose, just marginally overlap, with this being the southern and close to, no, by no means the western, but certainly the southernmost limit of the Nkuhuma pride. And funny enough, I heard that they were fighting with the Styx pride that are just south of us. But I might be wrong. Maybe it was the Tsalala breakaways that they were fighting with. So that's something that I would like to get information on as well. But I would imagine that there would be a fight. I would also think that the only lion that they might come into contact with in this part of the world would really be the Styx, because there has been this overlapping for many, many years with the Styx and the Nkuhumas, and I think the Styx and the Nkuhumas have actually been seen being quite amicable together. And I think that they're actually part of the same pride, just different splinter groups, different female splinter groups, because instead of having a very big pride that requires a lot of meat that they can spread themselves out over a territory, especially being that the Matimba males are both covering these females and they're covering the Styx. Kind of just a guess of mine. But I don't think that the Tsalala breakaway pride are any part of this, and I think that there would probably be some fur flying if they were to meet up. I see this little boy, he's a teenager, he's got his beard growing. I think my beard looked like that when I was in the army. Oh, they heard something. Look how quickly they... What it is we're close to Gari Main, and there's a truck. I actually felt, did you feel it? I felt the vibration of that deep diesel engine before I heard it, and so did they. Must be a delivery truck or something on Gari Main, and clearly they are quite aware of the sound and the size of that. Gosh, look at this little one. She's so full. Tiger cats, I'll make sure no trucks come and get you. I'll drive my Land Rover in front of any truck that came anywhere near you. I do a sort of a Greenpeace thing, or a Tiananmen Square thing. Lay myself down in front of a tank. Well, that got their attention. Shows that while they might be asleep, you know, cats have this unnerving tendency to block out all ambient sound, but be alert and be aware of that one tiny little sound that makes, it's like mom when you're a kid. There can be so much noise in the house, but when you do something wrong, mom can be in the other room and she can hear you, and she'll say, "Mark, what are you doing?" "Nothing, Mom." Not nothing, I could hear. Cats are like that with noise. Oh, yeah. Interesting, that. Very interesting. Might be Mom, I don't know. Or sibling. But they squeezed into this little patch of shade that's obviously comfortable. They're a pride, so close proximity is important, and body touch and body contact, but only to a point. Quite obviously he rolled over and he maybe rolled onto her paw or something. What do lions do? Sandy in Missouri wants to know, what do lions do to avoid being completely eaten alive by fleas? Or, I guess, Sandy, I guess you're extending that to other pesky parasites. I can see there are a bunch of flies on them now. They're actually, I should show you pictures in the insect book. So there are bat flies and incredible flies, blood-sucking flies, that don't even have wings anymore, and they look like something that comes out of a Dune novel. She's looking at me. I'm sorry, am I talking too loud? Okay, I'll keep it down a little bit. I'll lean closer to the mic. They are a host of parasites that do invade them and do keep them active. But I don't know if there is anything that they eat in particular. Certainly in terms of internal parasites, I know that one of the reasons why dogs and cats, you always see dogs and cats eating grass, and it's often a particular type of grass that has quite rough hairs on it, and before they swallow it, they actually mull it into a ball in their mouth, and then they swallow it, and actually what it does is it almost brushes the digestive tract and does rid their a lot. A number of things. They roll around a little bit. I think that's the sort of the most basic of hygiene, rolling in the dust when they can, or in the sand. The grooming that they do, they groom themselves, which reaches pretty much most of their body. When they're grooming themselves, they've got a very, very rough tongue, so invariably they are to some extent ridding themselves of things. They've got very, very neat little incisors, and I don't know if any of you have ever had a dog or a cat doing the incisor bite to get those little nits and ticks and things that might be too small to get caught by the tongue. They have claws, they're scratched, but they're also social enough that they groom each other, and that kind of grooming, which we call allo grooming, helps get to areas that they can't get to themselves. So clearly the very fact that they are as healthy as they're looking tells us that the kind of measures that they take, the self-grooming, the allo-grooming, the rolling, the rain that might happen, the scratching, the effort that they make at the moment is sufficient to keep the parasite load down and keep their condition pretty healthy. It becomes very evident, and things might change, but if we go into a drought or if conditions get very, very dry and game becomes scarce. Drought normally means that maybe animals will be dying, and it allows predators to feed a lot better, but sometimes a drought can hurt the predators too. But yes, we're in a time of the year when this is a very healthy pride lion. Very interesting thing in that when a lioness is pregnant, and I need to verify this, but I've learnt this over the years from others, and I believe it to be true, that when a lioness is pregnant, there are, I don't know what it is in her blood, but her blood salts or her blood iron levels, something changes in their blood that makes them distasteful to ticks and some of the other blood-sucking parasites, because they can't really afford to be weakened by parasites. Got a great question from Johannesburg, from Colin. Great to hear from some of our local South Africans. Well, actually, sorry, Colin, I'm just assuming, but you're here in South Africa, so I'm considering you a South African for today. Colin wants to know if an antelope or a buffalo were to walk in here, would they ignore it, or would they hunt, would they attack it? Yes, Colin, both. Answer to both questions. Yes, they would attack, and yes, they would ignore. And I would only know when it happens, because I don't know. I can only think that because they're so fat, that they would probably weigh up their options, and if it was possibly an easy target, maybe. But I think that they would most likely just lie there and look at it and ignore it. Having said that, I have seen lion that are on a kill get up and go and kill a buffalo because it was there. So there is really any possibility. It's one of the reasons why we sit with lion a lot or leopards, because we know that at any moment they can whip up from being fast asleep and bellies to the wind and go straight into attentive mode in the blink of an eye. And sometimes we just sit and we hope and wait for that moment to happen. Well, just so that we can see the behavior. Not that we're hoping for them to make a kill. But it just goes to show that nothing out here is predictable. Nothing. It's all a wait and see game. Got a question from B in Lee Mountain. Did you get where that is in? I don't know, I've never heard of Lee Mountain. But I guess in the US. He wants to know if lions snore, if we can hear any of them snore. I can hear them breathing heavily. I don't believe I've heard them snore, B.
And the heavy breathing is because the bellies are so full, and there must be just so much pressure on that on the diaphragm. But also the heavy breathing, I suppose, I know I've done it too. It helps with the discomfort of an overfull stomach. Interesting. I mean, we just had a pair of starlings fly over them. The starlings aren't shouting the way they normally would. I've seen lions sleeping on their back with an entire herd of impalas, zebra, wildebeest, giraffe walking past them and paying them very little attention. In fact, not even alarming, because the cats were so full, and even when the cats sat up and looked at the animals, they didn't really alarm, because it's almost as if they knew that with that belly, you're not going very far. This is a Birchall's glossy starling that Brian is showing you now. Are you picking up any sound of breathing? No. We might be sitting a bit too far to hear it. And a very, very thoughtful question coming in from Charlie. And Charlie sent this in through Twitter. And Charlie believes that, or understands that cheetah have evolved or adapted to diurnal hunting to allow, to avoid rather, likes of lion and competition, because I suppose Charlie means that the others are. There's a big sigh from the little boy. To avoid the nocturnal predators. It's a little bit of that, Charlie. There certainly is a little bit of that, and it's not so much an evolutionary thing as in terms of avoiding other predators, but in terms of lessening the competition amongst the predators, because they're all hunting the same prey species. So there isn't really one reason. There are a whole bunch of reasons. So yes, that would be one of them, most definitely. That it is far better to hunt during the day, because you have the least likelihood of having your prey taken by your, perhaps, the few main competitors being lion, leopard, hyena, no, we're not talking about wild dog yet. Lion, leopard, and hyena. Even jackal, for that matter. I've seen jackal chase cheetah off of a kill. But it's not entirely true, because there are other factors. I've seen vultures chasing cheetah off of a kill, and that's many, many times when they just get overwhelmed by the number of vultures. And that has always had to have played a role in their diurnal hunting, especially since they're hunting out in the open and they are so visible to vultures when they're hunting. So essentially that is part of it. The other part of it is that, well, leopard hunt in relatively thick bush, and they have a very, very short hunting range. They stalk their prey and they pounce. They don't really chase after their prey very much. Lion are kind of an intermediate, and especially since they are cooperative hunters, they hunt in groups. They hunt a little bit in the open and a little bit in the bush, but they're also hunting cooperatively. They have a completely different strategy. In fact, they have multiple strategies, being a group hunter, for different terrain, different prey, different conditions, but they'll hunt pretty much anywhere. But once again, they don't chase their prey down. They have to get close enough to strike, and they have to perform their hunting strategy seamlessly to be able to achieve the kill. And so cheetah, I think, to some extent also exploited the fact that nobody was out there during the day on the open plains chasing animals down with speed. And that's how cheetahs managed to occupy that niche. They developed very long, tall, thin, lithe bodies to be able to run their prey down. And yes, it was more convenient to do so during the day because it's pretty hard to see obstacles running at 50 miles an hour at night. So everything about cheetah, including the fact that there was less competition during the day, but everything about cheetah managed to get them to where they are now. But they also have become competition during the day, but everything about cheetah managed to get them to where they are now. But they also have become such specialist cats that cheetah are finding it hard to adapt, and so cheetah are a declining species. Lion and leopard are both species that have learnt and are capable of adapting. Leopard most of all. But having said that, we have seen leopard. In fact, Karula is famous for it. Karula is our resident leopard here. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, she is what we call the Queen of Djuma because she has always occupied Djuma as her territory. We've been watching Karula for many years now. We've watched her raise many cubs, and she has a habit of hunting in daylight hours. We've seen her hunting in mid-morning, we've seen her hunting around lunchtime even, and there too taking advantage of the fact that these cats are likely to be less active at that time of the day and less likely to disturb her on a kill. But it doesn't really hold, because if there was a leopard that made a kill down in the riverbed right now, the noise of that, no matter how full these cats are and no matter how fast asleep that they may seem to be, these cats would take them 3 leaps, they would be down in that riverbed on top of whatever was making a noise, because it's just something that they do, and they certainly don't seem like they've got the energy now, but believe me, they're storing it. Every little ounce of protein that they're digesting right now is just getting stored into energy for those muscles to react. And it can happen at any second. Question from Rhode Island, from Gail. Good afternoon. Well, it's good morning to Gail. Out there, I guess, Eastern Standard. Gail wants to know about the hierarchy, hunting and feeding. I think hierarchy goes out the window to some extent, feeding. But certainly hunting, there is an alpha female. She's normally the oldest female, and she normally dictates the hunt, and it's her ear and tail movements and her eyes and where she's looking, and she will instruct to some degree other members of the pride where to go and what to do going into a hunt. And it has been known that generally it's the alpha female that actually gets to bring the animal down, but that's not always the case, because a hunt can go 1,000 different ways as soon as they initiate it. Feeding hierarchy varies, because when they're on their own like this, without the dominant males, without the males of the territory in their presence, it becomes a free-for-all, and it's how much meat you can get your teeth into and guard or protect with your paws, and it's usually because of the hierarchy, it's usually because of their dominance that they're able to intimidate. the subordinates into relinquishing parts of the carcass. But it's a frenzy if they were hungry and they were to kill something. But that in itself varies, and it's very hard to put a label on animal behavior and say this is what happens, because every single pride is different. But not only is every single pride of lion different, every single day in a pride's life is different. And they have moods, and they have varying degrees of, or varying factors that influence how they behave, especially around a carcass. And a lot of that has got to do with their hunger, how long it is since they last ate, whether the males are around, also the moods of the males. Maybe one day a male will chase them all off of a carcass and mantle it and keep it to himself or the males, and another day he might share it with even the smallest of cubs. I've known males that have never kept the cubs at bay, but they've kept the females at bay. So there isn't a generalization that we can do or say about what happens at a carcass, because you've got to get to learn the individuals of each member of the pride and their behavior and their temperament and their characters, because they are individuals. They are individual. I call them children, but they are own. Just had a go-away bird arrive. There's a little bit of movement. They are rolling and yawning. I don't know if that means that they're going to start getting up, but it seems we need to move on. And this is the Nkuhuma pride. They are down here at Twin Dams. We will come back here later, but for now we're going to move on and see what else we can find for you this afternoon. All stations, Nkuhuma and Gala are still Lalapanzi at Twin Dams. I'm leaving them open lock. What's she gonna do? Turn around and go back to sleep? Or move down onto the sand? The shadows are getting longer and the sand is cooler and probably softer. They are going to be getting more alert as the afternoon wears on and the temperature cools. I want to head a little bit west, almost to the border of Arathusa. A couple of reasons, mostly because I heard of a herd of elephants that might have been moving in that area earlier today. I want to see if we can maybe find some sign of them. We haven't seen some ellies for a while. I'd certainly need an elephant fix. I don't know about you guys, but it'd be nice to find an elephant. But first, I want to visit a reptile, if it's there. I want to go back towards Gari Dam. I'm going to take a big loop. I'm going to go back towards Gari Dam. I haven't heard from any of the zoomers. But by the way, we do have live cameras here on the area that we cover, in the area that we cover. One at Juma Waterhole. And we also have another camera at Arathusa Waterhole. And I do encourage any of you who are what we call zoomies, any of you who are the people that are operating the camera, if there is anything at the water, to let us know, because we can then follow it once it leaves the dam. Once it leaves that camera, we can actually take this camera and we can follow it perhaps. But there's something I'd like to look at. Close to, well, on our way doing this detour, we're going to be going north to Gari Dam, and we're going to end west and then come back south again, maybe around Treehouse Dam or something. But I want to if it's there.
Hello everyone. Being out in the bush and being out there live has its technical challenges. We're experiencing some of that now and are working on it as fast as possible to get it sorted and get you back on the vehicle with us.
Sorry about that. I guess we've got a new little patch. There's a little patch now on Twin Dams Road we need to start avoiding, because I guess, well, not avoiding, but anticipating. I didn't put around Mumba Road Junction, that little patch where the Mumba Road goes down into the Mawati River. So now we know where it is. We can preempt it next time. But sorry about that. We lost you for a minute. Don't go anywhere. If we get these little signal breaks, ooh, I see a striped animal and a big buffalo. If we lose you, or if you lose us, it's just a temporary signal glitch. After all, we are driving a TV studio around in an open vehicle in the middle of Africa, and venture forward slowly. I don't want this buffalo to get up. I don't want to disturb him. There are all sorts of little mud wallows that have become wet since this little rain that we had, and so the buffalo are not as concentrated at the dams as they usually are. They're now finding anywhere to just lie around and chew the cud. Afternoon Squire and his red-billed oxpecker. I'm more interested in these two who might be going somewhere. He's not going anywhere, but these two might go somewhere. So I just want to say hello to these two. Hello, children. Stallion and a mare. Interesting. This is the stallion. I wonder if they can sense that their cat's down there. It's quite far. They're certainly both watching something. Unless it's just the buffalo. Could be they're just watching the buffalo. Well, in the UK, hello Will. How do I tell the difference between the genders? Well, sometimes you just have to look at the animal and you kind of get a feel, just the aura, everything. He's got a stronger jawline, got a thicker neck. I do have to admit, I have seen his genitals, so that does make a difference in telling. But generally a stallion has a much heavier body, thicker neck, stronger jaw, heavier shoulders. This other zebra, however, is just coming out of a really, really bad wound, and perhaps it's something that I ordinarily wouldn't point out, but I have to point it out to you at the moment. And also, just got to look at the size of his haunches, look at the size of his thighs compared to hers, but there is rather an intensive gash in her side that clearly she was favouring the other leg, but that's probably because she's been doing that for quite some time. He's a young... See, now I'm suddenly stumped, but anyways, that was obviously quite a scar. I'm just looking at it with my binoculars now. That was quite a gash, probably from a lion attack. And we've seen zebra with little gashes and things, and we often get very concerned, what are we going to do? And there's nothing really that we can do that won't put the animal in more danger than to let nature take its course. And here's a perfect example of how this zebra has survived fantastically well after having had quite a severe gash in her rump. And, well, none the worse for wear. Nancy in Wisconsin wants to know if the oxpeckers would help healing the gash or if they would hinder it. They could actually become quite a nuisance, Nancy, because they would lap at the blood. They would also feed on maggots that might be in the wound, and maggots would be good for a zebra because they would be feeding on all the necrotic tissue, any of the dead tissue that might exist. And zebra could be susceptible to things like septicemia if a wound became really badly septic. Septicemia is one thing that could kill them. But oxpeckers are known to keep wounds open, to keep the blood, to keep the wound attracting flies, so they can be a hindrance. And there's always been this idea that oxpeckers are it's a sort of a mutualism or a symbiotic relationship or something, but they can be quite a pest. But obviously not so much so that they no longer... Oh, he was doing the phlegm. I need to move forward so I can see him again, because there we go, you can see him. Hello, children. Just don't go south, okay? Because they might not be hungry, but their cat's there. You don't want more scratches on your rumps. Dee in Missouri wants to know what grasses they're eating. Dee, I can't tell. They've got their heads in the grass. I can't really tell what it is that they're eating. They could be eating some of the panicum that's here. There is a Digitaria grass that's growing. There's an Eragrostis that's growing. There's even a... What is that grass that's just next to me here? I'm trying to think of... I think of the name. But they only eat grass, but they do eat a variety of grasses, and they're kind of not quite a bulk grazer, they're not a fussy grazer. They eat a lot of different grasses, and they eat a lot of it. They go more for quantity rather than quality. I'm just looking at some of her scars on this flank, and I'm starting to think that might not be lion, that's maybe zebra that's given her a beating, because I'm seeing some very distinct hoof marks on her rump, very close to a matching scar. The matching scar on this side, that might be from lion. I don't know, that's kind of very, very funny, that maybe there was a lion holding on both sides, but those big round marks, especially the one on that is a zebra hoof if ever I saw one, kind of branded into her thigh there. And then the one towards the rump. Interesting. I can only speculate. Interesting question from Tanya in the Netherlands, something I've never heard before. Tanya was saying on her last safari, she was told that in hotter climates, zebra have more stripes. I can't comment on that, Tanya. It never occurred to me to think about it. And the different species of zebra have different stripes that are not necessarily temperature related. I would have to look into that, to be honest. I've never heard that theory, but I would love to look into it to see if there is anything in it. Certainly, one thing I can tell you is that we're looking at the southern population of the plain zebra, and if you look, especially since she's got her rump to us, in between the big black stripes on her rump, you can see there are those sort of brownish stripes. We call those shadow stripes, and it's those shadow stripes that are characteristic of the southern race of the Birchall zebra up in Kenya and Tanzania. If you ever see a photograph of a zebra and they have the shadow stripes, you know it's from southern Africa. And if you see a photograph of a zebra without the shadow stripes, just with black and white, without that very faint sort of, sometimes it can even be reddish and russet colored, then you know those are East African plain zebra, just a different subspecies. But I think if we had to see a herd of zebra, we would see anything from broad stripes to thin stripes, because they even look like our fingerprints. So you must know that every zebra has its stripes. I think we call this one Spot. What do you think? Because we've got those two spots on his rump from a zebra hoof.
Definitely.
Just in case we see her again. Okay, Spot, we're going to be leaving you now. I haven't seen these before, I don't think, this particular couple. Hello, Dylan. Dylan's in Iowa, wanting to know about that spot on the inner front leg. It's known in horse circles as the chestnut, and I'm learning more about it as we go along, because I'm not too much, as much as I love the horsey sect and and I have a lot of friends in the horse business. Known as the chestnut, that spot. It is thought of as perhaps a vestigial toe. I guess in a way, maybe. I mean, it is just above the wrist, so I guess it's possible. But it's not a scent gland. As far as I know, it's not a scent gland. Have a look at a search engine and see what you can find out about the chestnut on the inside of the front leg of a horse or a zebra or any equid. Right, we're going to move along and we're going to leave these wonderfully striped, iconic creatures be. Bye-bye, children. Yes, Mr. Stallion, you. Put your ears back. Give me that look. You see that look he gave me? He kind of put his ears back. Whatever, Mr. Zebra, whatever. We'll see you later, dude. Don't go south, as I said. A few cats there that might be interested. Chris is sending a tweet. Chris wants to know what the meaning is of the twitching of the legs to get rid of flies. I think mostly it is, Chris. I notice it with horses, and you always get it with horses. There's always this muscle twitching that goes on. And I guess it is because there are flies that are biting them or irritating them, or oxpeckers that are irritating them. Now there's a wallow up ahead. I'm wondering if there was enough mud to fill, or rather water to make mud to get a buffalo to come and wallow. Because this one dried up pretty quickly, and we're lucky that a lot of them have become wet again, and a lot of them are being occupied by buffalo at the moment. Yes, no, yes, no. It's quite close to the roads. I don't want to disturb anyone if they're here. No. Oh, there is one, but he's not wallowing. He's been wallowing. Gosh, look at him, he's full of mud. Well, somebody asked me earlier, what do lion do about the flies? This is what buffalo do. He's been... Hopefully he'll move into the sun and we'll get to see not only the mud on his body, but maybe... Gosh, he's caked. Even his horns. But he's also got a swarm of flies buzzing around him. And that lovely mud pack that he carries must be some relief from them all. But he's not able to groom himself like a cat. So he cakes himself in mud and then he'll go off and rub against a tree, and once the mud dries and he rubs it off against a tree, he takes off a lot of the parasites that might be biting him and affecting his health or his mood. Lennon, Michigan is asking about buffalo and TB, and we know that the lion get 2 it's bovine tuberculosis, by the way, that we're talking about, TB, bovine TB. And the question is, how do buffalo get it? I think it's just inherent in their population. It's just something that they carry, like foot and mouth or hoof and mouth disease. They're just corridors disease. There are just certain diseases that live within the population, but over time there's been a... Oh, no, wait, hang on a second. I think it's probably from domestic cattle, if I'm not mistaken. But they might have contracted it. I haven't heard anybody going to MPC Kaya this afternoon. Copy, thanks. That is one. That is one big bull buffalo. I was just thinking the same thing. It's not something you want to meet on foot. And that's because they can be quite irascible, they can be quite bad-tempered. Bruce is calling from New York. Bruce is asking if we were on a walking safari and we came across this buffalo, would his instinct be to charge us? Or, well, I think to start with that, Bruce, no, I don't believe the instinct is to charge. And my experience, especially living at home with buffalo, I have buffalo that live around my house, and I very often walk outside my door. I don't know that they're around, and I don't bump into them, but I see them from about this distance, or sometimes. Sorry, listening to the radio quickly. Interesting. We need to go and see that. Herd of buffalo that seem to be coming this way. Be nice to see if there is a nice big herd coming in. We haven't seen them for a long time. Most of the time, if they're not being threatened, and this is sort of, it goes for a lot of animals in nature, if they're not threatened, if they have enough space to react, if their personal space and their comfort zone isn't invaded, they'd much rather turn around and move away from you. And quite often they actually just stand there and they watch me, and I go about my business and they carry on feeding, because I acknowledge them, they acknowledge me. There's no need for me to get closer. There's no need for them to be worried, because I'm not really out there to do anything. Buffalo have got a reputation because they are very cunning and they're very clever. And when it comes, and a lot of their reputation comes from people who have hunted them, and it's only natural that animals who are being hunted are going to behave in a very different way. So, generally speaking, if one were to arrive here on foot and came through and we didn't know that he was here, my guess is mostly he would probably lift his head, he would have a look, and he'd turn around in a huff and he'd run away. Or just walk away. It's very hard to predict what he will do. But unless he's been aggressed and unless he's been seriously hassled by humans, he's not likely to just attack for no reason. Especially here where the buffalo are not hunted. They do have a reputation, but they're not always aggressive, and they're not always going to be out there to kill you. But the point is, don't approach them. The point is, when you see an animal, there's no need to get any closer when you're on foot, because just that very act, no matter how far you are, is a threatening act, and you're likely to invoke the attacker's best form of defense clause. Fight or flight, you know, that kind of thing. You don't want to question the fight or flight response or the distance that response is triggered. When you see something and you're out on foot, where you are, you gauge the wind, you gauge what the animal's mood is, and generally you don't need to get closer. You can walk parallel with it, you can keep your distance and observe it. The best thing to do is when you see something, that's as close as you need to be to observe it without inducing any behavior that no longer becomes natural behavior. It then becomes behavior based on its reaction to a human, a dangerous human in its space. Fortunately, buffalo don't see us in the vehicles in the same light. And thank you, Mr. Buffalo. I'm sorry to push you away from your shade and your mud. You can come back now. Or he might be wanting to go out there in the sun and rub on bushes, rub some of the mud off. Lynn wants to know what the dominant sense of buffalo is. How's their eyesight? Very good sense of smell. I reckon buffalo's eyesight is very good. I think what maybe throws us off as humans is that sometimes animals' eyesight might be very good, but they're not really concerned with what is out there. They're mostly concerned with what is in their immediate, so we seem to think of them as being short-sighted. Meanwhile, they're actually just less concerned about what is far away. Just seen one buffalo track crossing the road here. There's reports of a herd of buffalo that have been coming down Philemon's cut line in an easterly direction. Hearing is pretty good too. Buffalo are very sensitive. I'm also hearing a lot of alarm calls again. When you stop, you can hear this. I can hear crombecs. I can hear chinspot basses. Somewhere in here. And it could be something as small as a slender mongoose. So those are the crombecs that you're, I think, focusing on now in that buffalo thorn. see if we can try. You can hear all this twittering, this chattering that several bird species are making. And it's clearly something that is attacking birds or attacking a nest or something. Ephraim, come in. Yeah, what Mkonzo was that? Okay, copy, thanks. I think I'm going to just have to take a look. Poke our nose into it since it is fairly open. Far too much happening without. Still mostly it's back there. I'm pointing away from it. It's quite hard for me to gauge direction because I've only got one ear open to everything. I thought I was hearing noises here and I wasn't. There's always playfulness in youth. I love it. We've had some wonderful times with buffalo. She's a she's a very wise old buffalo. This. Gracie in Dallas wants to know if these buffalo will trample everything around them like an elephant herd. Not really trample everything, Grace. What they will do is they will open up the grassland a little bit. They will be breaking a lot of the dry grass stems that need to be flattened to allow new grasses to grow. And because the ground is pretty damp and there are new grasses coming up, it couldn't be a better time to actually have a buffalo come through and actually feed on a lot of the new grasses. Prompts a little bit of growth. Plus there is the fact that the ground is damp and there's going to be more growth. But most importantly, as I said earlier, the fact that they leave their dung behind is something that helps to fertilize the soil for the grasses for next season or for growth of grasses. Really beautiful sight. We could probably go up to Zoe's Road in the old hyena den to see. We'll be able to see them eventually coming up that way. We could follow them up Rebecca's Road. I'm guessing that it's maybe 200, maybe 250 strong. It's not an exceptionally large herd, but it is considerable, a number of buffalo that are coming through, bulls and cows and calves, some very big bulls that tend to bring up the rear. But I'm also tempted to leave them for now, just for the time being, because I do want to do a few things this afternoon. The one thing I do want to do is go back to the lion at some stage. But I believe this herd has just come through, or just come past the hyena den. That might be quite pertinent. We might be able to go and see how they, well, I don't know how they reacted, but we might be able to see some activity at the den this afternoon. I just want to show you just quickly an interesting cloud front. It's not very big, but you can almost see it's like a, well, it's a front. What more can I say? Rolling in. It's not particularly dark and foreboding. It's a very, very thin layer of cloud, but it is showing some serious wind activity at about 20,000 feet. Station leaving Klumbenyari open lock at the moment. They're heading north up onto Rebecca's Road. Sean, come in. Questions@wildearth.tv is an email address if you wanted to send any questions to us regarding any of the wildlife that we see, or if you just want to say hello and let us know where you are in the world. It's great to get a mental picture of the geography of our viewers on the planet. And you can send your comments too. If you're not on email and you're familiar with Twitter, you can send a tweet to #SafariLion. It'd be great to hear from you, but also please remember, let us know where you are in the world. We had an eagle on drive this morning, and well, now that we're at Treehouse Dam, Treehouse Dam, I'm going to have a look around. Chewy, thanks Chewy. Chewy is one of our Ustream chat viewers. Well, no, Chewy is also a WildEarth viewer, but on Ustream chat, and Ustream is one of the other platforms. Chewy is responding to a bird that we had this morning, and I had an eagle. I got a bit excited because I thought it might have been an Ayers wolf eagle, which it isn't. It wasn't. I thought it was an African hawk eagle, but it didn't quite have the mottled markings, and Chewy is saying that she thinks it was a juvenile African hawk eagle. I think it's possible, Chewy, but more than juvenile, I think maybe sub-adult, because juvenile is sort of more of a brownish color. And maybe that transition between juvenile and adult, that sort of sub-adult phase, maybe that's when it was. I couldn't think of any other eagle that might have had both pale underwing and pale belly, and the stance and the whole jizz of an African hawk eagle. Photobombed by a red-billed hornbill. I was looking for, there was a southern black tit. So kind of, there it is. It's actually just below. Come back again. Southern black tit just below the hornbill. In the bush willow. If we can just get a good look at it. Black and white, cleaning insects from the leaves. Got a lovely call. You don't get to see them because they're such active little birds. They don't sit still for a minute. The southern black tit. Anyway, there's the red-billed hornbill that I thought photobombed us. Flies are out in force again. Shall we continue? I want to go past the hyena den because they've just been disturbed by a herd of buffalo, and I also want to try and get back to the lion a little bit later. I was hoping that there might have been some sign of those elephants that were seen this morning on Arathusa, but there we go. Off of our boundary, there's another herd of elephant that have been seen, but not on our traversing area. Question from Toronto, from Brian. Hello, Brian. Brian's in Toronto in Canada. About snakes. Where and when do they hibernate? Do they become completely inactive during these months going into the dry season, which is technically our winter? And Brian, no, they don't hibernate as such. They become less active. I've very often found snakes in the middle of winter in the heat of the day. You see, oh, sorry, before I carry on, there's a little squirrel sitting in the sun, and I think it's such a pretty little picture because, come on, don't move, squirrel. Well, it did move. It wasn't sitting as pretty as it was. It was almost posing. Where do snakes go? So many different places, Brian. Even some of them squirrel nests. And that little stump that the squirrel is sitting on would have been a branch many years ago that would have jutted out that way, and it would have broken off, and because it exposed a lot of the heartwood to the elements, there would have been insects and all sorts of things that would have gotten in there. And where did the squirrel go?
Behind.
Okay. Now if we look at that big hole of this, well, this is another spot where there was a big gall or something and branch broke off, and I can actually see the branch has fallen off and it's been dragged over onto the other side of the road. You can see the big hollow in that. That would have been, if I move my head, of course, you can see there's a big hollow in that branch. We match that big hollow to this broken patch on this marula tree. You can see how you can get these hidden holes that form in trees, and that is a place where a lot of things like boomslang and some of the tree snakes, vine snakes, the marble tree snake or the spotted bush snake, a lot of the tree snakes might end up sleeping, brown house snakes, the bark snake. There are a number of snakes that might curl up in a hole like that, or use, that would also be something that a squirrel would use as a dray. So it would be something like that that snakes might creep into to spend most of the dry season, but they'll invariably poke a head out during the day when the sun is out, and with a little bit of luck when it's a really hot day, actually get a little bit mobile and active. I've seen snakes quite active in the dry season. See, we don't get the temperatures. We don't get frost. We don't get the temperatures that require snakes to go into sort of a full hibernation. They don't need to become completely dormant. They are more just governed by the cold temperatures that fall at night. And as soon as the sun comes out during the day, it becomes warm enough for them to become active. How do the squirrels differ from the ones found here to those found in Connecticut, the US? Louise from Connecticut. Greetings, Louise. How do the squirrels here differ? Completely different species. I don't know the family. I don't know which squirrels you get in Connecticut. That's a difficult question to answer. I did see squirrels when I was in California, but I don't think, and I think those are gray squirrels that have come in. They're not even resident squirrels. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe they are. The gray squirrels are North American, and they're invading England and Cape Town and things like that. I don't know enough about the squirrels in other parts, but they are just different species. They just have developed in different continents. So there's a difference in the size of the tail, difference in the diet, the way they live. They're just very different squirrels. I guess you can think of an analogy. The bison and the buffalo, these are different animals, but they belong to the same family. They belong to the same group of animals, but they have I don't like to use the word evolved because it brings up a whole host of discussions, but certainly adaptation to their environment and adaptation to their geographical distribution. The squirrels in North America would be so far removed from the squirrels in Africa, especially because we would see the squirrels in Africa as being what we call Old World, and the squirrels in America is known as the New World squirrels. But I don't know the history of their genealogy. I don't know the history of the squirrels that extensively to be able to find out when it was that they diverged as they did. I'm just going to be speaking to one of the landowners because he's coming out of the hyena den, and we want to go in to say hello to the hyena, but maybe we'll say hello, maybe not. Hello, Neil. Thanks. I think you might be looking for buffalo. We're going to stop in here at the hyena den and see what they're up to. Evidently the buffalo came through here, came past, but they all just looked at each other and nothing really major happened. Probably the buffalo decided it wasn't worth a confrontation at all, or just that they were headed in a different direction, I guess. Hello children, let's go this way because there's some action going on. The little one is There's some booting and probably a little bit of dominance that we might see. Wants to drink, and Mom's going to let her. See if we can just try and get in front of these bushes. I don't want to disturb them too much. Thirsty child. Not too perturbed about the presence of a herd of buffalo that have just moved through. I guess they know that they've moved on. They must have heard that the buffalo have gone, and buffalo could pose a threat. They do not like predators, and sometimes they do get a little bit aggressive with predators, especially youngsters, if they catch them. Coming so close that we're going to lose sight of them if they get any closer, because the front of the vehicle, we can't get the camera over that. That's the front of the vehicle, that blurred green thing that you see. It's what we call the bonnet, also known as the hood. Hey there, children. I can't tell you how it never ceases to amaze me that they can accept our presence like this, that we can sit here and they don't feel threatened at all. We are not threatening the children, that the mothers are allowing us to be so close, even suckling. Quite an amazing experience. No matter how many times we do experience it, it's always very humbling. Hello, baby. Sorry. Gosh, I'm getting way softer. Just the ears. Mika in California was asking whether the cub that was eating that female, was it a sign of affection or part of the grooming it's a part of everything, Jessica. It's multiple things. It is grooming. It's a maybe an attempt at grooming, but it is also a social thing. It's an affection thing. It was just such a random spot on her body that it wasn't really necessary to groom there. If anything, the places are sort of behind the ears and the neck, and that's where it's more appreciated. So it was more a case of just that was mom, and it's just sort of giving mom a bit of loving. In the guise of grooming, in the guise of social bonding, in the guise of maternal bonding, in the guise of, well, all sorts of things. Not just one little thing. It's a lot of things that would have meant to both cub and to the youngster and the adult. Oh, you funny little child. You really are. Absolutely gorgeous. It's almost like, if you ever want to cuddle a hyena, that's the kind of size, age, look, that's how you want to cuddle a hyena, like when they look like that. When they get a little bit bigger, they lose that cuddle ability. Barbara in Maryland saw what looked like one of the youngsters limping earlier. I thought I saw that too, Barbara, but it's no, definitely not learning to walk. They've been walking for months now. It might have just been a thorn it stood on at that moment that we saw it, but that's the one, if I'm not mistaken, the one in the background now. I think that's the one that might have appeared to have limped. One of these two little ones. And they sorry. They both seem to be doing fine. I think, if anything, I'm just parked in a way that it's directly over me, that my head's going to get in the way, but I can't move because I've got trees in the way. We can move around that way. It might help. Let's do that, Brian. We can move to the eastern side and maybe see a bit of the sunset. But no, I think they're fine. Barbara, nobody's limping, nobody's injured. Gonna get into trouble if you put your nose in there. Then Mama's gonna snap at you. Maybe not. I'm gonna move so that if I can. Sorry, little one, see it. Get them running back to the den. Okay, maybe I can just sneak around this tree a little bit. Okay, no, it's gonna disturb them. I'll try and go closer there. So I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna go around the other side. Unfortunately, just the position I was in there, they just happened to all be all the action happened to be happening over my head and my hat. Go this way, stop here now. We might get to see a little bit of the colours of the late afternoon. It'll be ideal. But it'll be a little bit better in terms of Brian's ability to follow them without my hat intervening or interrupting. There you go. Jeffrey in Texas. Multiple questions from Jeffrey in Texas, in Austin. Hi Jeffrey, you ever see the bats? Lifespan of a hyena, how old are these cubs and do they engage in cannibalism? Lifespan, I don't know Jeffrey, about 8 to 10 I think. How old are these cubs? Well, these two little ones are about 3 months, and I'm thinking that the bigger one is maybe about 3.5 months, only a couple of weeks older than the two smaller ones. Cannibalism, I've never witnessed it, but I guess maybe. I can't answer that. Look at this pretty little thing. Maybe they're about 3.5 and the other one's about 4 months, but they run about there. Some noise behind. Maybe they're about 3.5 and the other one's about 4 months, but they run about there. Some noise behind me that this female that's suckling, she lifted her head to listen to, but I don't know what it is. But she's not too concerned. Hyena cubs are always inquisitive. I've sat at home with hyena dens closer to home where they come and chew on my tires, and I've even had hyenas chewing on my boots. So the other one's licking its mother again. And I'm starting to think that maybe what it is doing is trying to prompt her, judging by the, well, stop now. Maybe trying to prompt her to roll over so that it can suckle. So what it's going to do now is going to try and sneak in there and snuckle from an aunt. And I don't know if she's going to be allowed. Maybe not even going to try. I'll come back and bother our sibling then, I guess. Time to play. Did I lose? Hello, James. James is in Kansas. An interesting question, and I don't know how to answer it. James wants to know if there's well, asking a question about the proportion males and females in births. Is it disproportionate given that the males are so subordinate? I really don't know, James. You know, hyena researchers who have been studying hyenas for decades still can't tell the difference between adult hyena until they maybe give birth and they're actually suckling. There's just this weird anomaly in the actual sexing of hyenas. Just by the way, the three have wandered off, and this is I think one of the other mothers, or maybe she's an older sister, but it looks like she's been left to go and see what the cubs are doing. So she's gone to call them, and they're all running back up the road. Here they come, 1, 2. It's almost like she's I won't say reprimanding, but she's clearly gone to find them since they were getting a little bit too adventurous. Dangerous for them to get too adventurous. Wander too far from the adults when they're sleeping. She's now gone off for the older cub, because the older cub has still gone off. And I guess it's her duty to make sure that it doesn't wander too far. Pity we don't see down the road so well, but because of all the bush. But James, I'm really not sure of the ratio of males to females that are born. That's a very interesting question, and I'm sure that some of the studies, like that of Gus Mills, and some of the other hyena studies, maybe like Scotty Creel, Goran, I think, also did some hyena studies. It'd be interesting if they maybe had any idea on that. I do know that in some cases, when there is, in some cases in nature, where there is a higher population of males, that there will be a predominance of females being born. It's got something to do with pheromones and all sorts of things, but I don't know how that translates to the hyena population, and I couldn't tell you. I have no way of knowing or no way of telling. Even though we've seen the genitals of these three youngsters, there's no way of knowing whether they're male or female, even though they quite clearly might look like they're male. Unfortunately, female genitalia in hyena are almost identical to that of the males. Now, since there's a vehicle coming close by, it looks like the little ones are starting to run back towards the den. Plus I can hear a lot of people making a noise. But I think it's time for us to make our way to the lion. The hyena den to the lion's den. Because I want to see if they might get active and see if we can see some activity out of them. Charlie, who sent a tweet to #SafariLive, Charlie wants to know if there is a physical advantage to the sloping back. There is indeed, Charlie. The longer front legs coupled with a very, very thick neck, very, very strong shoulders allows them to actually physically pick up carcasses and run with them. It gives them a lot of upper body strength, but it also helps a lot in their gait. It helps a lot in when they're hunting. A hyena are very much a distance hunter. They tend to run down their prey rather than stalk and pounce like lion or some of the other cats. They've got this incredible stamina that allows them to physically hunt them down until they get tired, and that gait is assisted by the physiology of the animal. Good afternoon.
Are you?
Very good, and you?
Good, thanks.
I'm going to leave you to it.
Don't go because of us.
Not at all. I'm going because I want to take my viewers to the lion.
Ah, wow.
Where's the lion?
You don't know yet?
Well, we saw them earlier, but I don't know if they're still there.
Oh, twin dams.
Oh, they're still at Twin Dams?
I don't know. I'm going to go and have a look.
Oh, okay. You let me know?
Yeah, sure.
Great. Yeah, I'm going to come straight after them and ask, what is up with the face here?
The flies.
The flies.
Oh, the flies.
The flies.
To concentrate on the camera, to stop having to jerk
All the
that.
flies up my nose, in my mouth, in my ears.
Okay.
I can't have all of that looking at the camera. Although it might improve my face.
And listen, you know about the rhino, hey?
Okay. Here comes that little older cub. Surprised it doesn't get. It'd be surprising it doesn't get reprimanded. I wonder where it's been come in from. Like a cat that got the canary. I'm gonna just have to guess. Alright. Bye bye, ladies. Thank you for your perseverance, and thank you for your patience, and thank you for allowing us to see your children, most importantly. Just a quick word with one of the landowners that are here with his family, and I guess it must be, I can't show you Ryan, but I can describe it. It looks like a motocross rider coming out of the Roof of Africa rally. But he's got a buff over his face and the cap pulled down, and it is. I battle to just concentrate and chatting to you with the flies on my face, and then when I've got my camera up or my binoculars up, it becomes so hard to keep them focused and to keep a steady hand. I can't imagine what it must be like for Brian and Andrew in the back there with these flies on their face, trying to keep the camera steady, trying to follow animals without the twitching. So cover up like that. I think we've got some time before it gets too dark. We'll try and head back down to Twin Dam and see what's happening with those lions. And I'm going to need to just call in on the radio just to make sure we can go there. Barbara in Maryland, what age would they go out and hunt with the pack? Well, probably only from about 6 months on, maybe, Barbara. I'm not too sure. Depends on the number in the pack. But yeah, probably from about 6 months, 8 months, they might go out with an adult. Do hyenas get fleas and ticks? Raymond in Mississippi was asking. Yes, they do, Raymond. What do they do about it? Pretty much the same as everybody does. They kick and they scratch and they lick and they bite and they try and rid themselves as much as they can. They might roll in the dirt, they lie in the mud. They pretty much engage in a lot of the same kind of anti-parasite behavior. Oh goody, sounds like there's no one there at Twin Dam. Which way should we go?
Biggest thing.
Well, this is probably it. Chelapan down to Twin Dams Road. Oh, hello zebra. These are our two. This is the stallion and the mare we saw earlier. Hello children. Hello pretty girl. Sorry to disturb you. So we don't want to leave it too late to get to the lion, because if they do wake up and they start moving, they can move away. There's just as equal a chance that they're just going to sleep into the night. Should be a beautiful new moon out. There's a fairly nice sunset happening right now, but we're on fairly low ground, so it's not easy to see the sunset. So forgive me for tonight for not concentrating on the sunset, but we seem to have a full plate. We've got a lot to look at, a lot to see. Game Reserve, South Africa. Welcome to our little corner of bushveld, a little patch of ground in millions of acres of African wildlife, and we're very lucky to be able to bring you little snippets of what happens, little snippets of what it's like in the Greater Kruger National Park, pockets of activity that can become very exciting. Pretty colours in the sky, the clouds kind of lifted for the most part. The bank that we were seeing in the south, to the southeast, has pretty much dissipated by now. It's dissolved, I suppose mostly because temperatures are dropping, and so all that condensation is, well, it's changing composition. Not much more evaporation taking place. Might be quite a dewy night. You might find a bit of dew and moisture overnight. Oh, very interesting. Mark in Seattle wanting to know if bears have ever inhabited the African continent. I'd like to hear from you. I don't think so. I think perhaps up north, maybe if there was a land bridge across Mediterranean, maybe. I don't know. I know that there are some anomalies up in North Africa where there are things that happen that occur in Europe that have occurred in parts of North Africa, but I have to do a little bit of research. North Africa. visibility right here at Mumba. Apology about a signal drop. Seems to be a new patch that we've never had before where we're losing signal, but we're back again. We're heading to Twin Dam. I want to spend some time with these cats again. Temperatures are dropping. I'm hoping they're going to be waking up. I'm hoping we're going to see a little bit of hello grooming, maybe a little bit of behavior that we haven't been able to see because they've been so full, they've been sleeping for so long. So let's see, we're approaching them now. Let's see what the cats are going to be doing. The question was about bears in Africa. I think it might have been breaking signal at that moment. And I know that there have been some species of European animals that have come through to northern parts of Africa, but I don't know about bears. Mark, this is from Mark in Seattle. I'm not really sure about bears, Mark. I'm going to have to follow up on that. Interestingly, there's a saddle-bull stork that has arrived at the dam. I'm going to sit maybe here, a different position than we were sitting in earlier. I don't recall seeing the saddle-bull here earlier. Very pretty stork. One interesting thing I want to point out is that these Nkuhumas are here where that Styx female was enticing and rejecting that Matemba male. He was trying to mate with her there just not too long ago, only a few days ago. It's just quite interesting that we're in the same place. The other saddle bull's just a rock. No, it's a heron. Lion, one of the lion watching the heron arrive. Two, now both I think sub-adults sitting up watching the heron arrive. Not that they're going to do anything, I don't think, but maybe just interested in seeing what development has taken place. The fact that they are here and they haven't gone back to wherever it was that they killed the buffalo tells me that that whole carcass, that is all finished, that they are not planning on going back there. There must have been some altercation with a hyena this morning, because a hyena was seen taking away a leg of the buffalo, which would have been one of the remains of the buffalo that evidently they killed. And I still haven't been able to get a clear answer as to where that car, I don't think anybody's really found where it was, but we can see by their bulging tummies that they've had their full. Now even if they'd had their full and there was still something left to feed on, they would have come to the water and gone back to the carcass and probably slept at the carcass to ward off vultures and other scavengers and keep it for the time when they're going to maybe wake up and get hungry again. So my guess is that they're going to probably wake up and start moving back towards the core of their territory, which is a little bit further north. But that could be any time between now and 6 o'clock in the morning, which is about nearly 12 hours time. There's no telling how long it could take. Could be in 5 minutes, could be in 5 hours. But I'd like to be here to see if it happens in the time that we're here before the end of drive, because it is cooling down and they might start getting a little active. Oh, you missed heron. That's the female saddle bull that's here. And I'm sure it's the same saddle bull pair that we've seen at Djuma Waterhole or Gowrie Dam. We've seen them at Buffelshoek Dam as well. Pretty sure it's the same saddle bulls. They're quite an endangered species, and there you go, look at that, stork and a heron. Yeah, Mark here, you're welcome to join. A stork and a heron. David. Affirmative, space for one. Okay, welcome Alan. Mark here, WildEarth. David in New Mexico was asking, sorry about that by the way, since I'm here I've got to keep the other radio open, and I have to every now and then answer to people who might want to come and view it, and there's also a good chance that maybe others will want to come and see them, and we might have to make a space or make way for another vehicle. Look at this child, so full, can barely walk.
Height of laziness, right?
Look at that, I can't believe that belly. The young male is so fat and so full, he's not even getting up to urinate. He's just, I'll just do it here, wet my bed. At least we get to see that his kidneys are working fine. That is a little bit comical and a big sigh. But that is also quite typical, really. Sorry, David, I get distracted. As you know, it's easy to get distracted out here. David was asking about saddle bull storks, about their feeding habits. Well, I don't know if David, if you meant the saddle bull or storks in general, but yes, they feed on fish and amphibians, fish and frogs, and anything aquatic they can get their beak into. But they do feed on land creatures too, reptiles, and sometimes small mammals. But saddle bull storks are predominantly aquatic feeders. They predominantly feed on aquatic life, as opposed to, say, some of the other storks that might move through the grassland. I know marabous are a type of stork that are maybe going to feed on things out in the grassland, as well as scavenge. Now the saddle bull stork is not going to be scavenging, but different storks do have different feeding patterns and different feeding. Yeah. Brilliant. Yeah, in a form.
You know I'm famous.
Who are you again?
I'm the electric bushveld champion.
In backgammon.
I'll challenge you. Challenge.
Oh really?
If you win, you can come on TV. If you win, I'll put the camera on you.
After I win, you'll put me on TV.
If you win,
There's no such thing as that.
There's a mean game. There's a really mean
Oh,
game.
that's what he said.
Sorry about the banter, folks, but it's all in good fun.
Do you know where the big males are?
Well, they were here just a few days ago mating with one of the sticks.
Do you know where the big males are?
Well, they were here just a few days ago mating with one of the sticks females and went further south. And I don't know where they've been since.
What is the territory that you can
Yeah.
traverse?
Here on Gowrie and Arathusa Safari.
Can't go up to Gopozu. Who funds you guys?
A question coming in from Texas from Julia. Hello, Julia. Wanting to know the difference between a male and female saddlebill stork. Well, one of the easiest differences between the two is looking at the eye, and it's probably hard for us to zoom in on the eye from this darker eye. If you were to see them from the front, you'd see the brood patch, which is a patch of skin on the breast. But easy enough for me to have seen with my binoculars to be able to have seen her yellow eye.
I'm broadcasting at the moment. I can't answer that at the moment.
Billy Joe in Florida wants to know if these two, the heron and the stork, would fight over something. Most definitely. I've seen storks, herons and fish eagles fight over fish. And it is a big competitive world out here. And it's all got to do with size and dominance. And I think if the heron caught something, the stork would probably try and mob it and try and intimidate it. But, sorry, Brian, we've got a beautiful thing happening with lion paws here, that we can change from stork to this incredible interaction between the two. Batter cake, batter cake. This tells me that they're starting to wake up, they're starting to get a little bit active, maybe a little bit playful.
I'll copy you now. The last I saw, they were heading from Philemon's Cutline up Rebecca's Road towards Zoe's. And then hyena den is very active. It's good luck, good fun there. So that's the hyena den at Philemon's Dip. I get to see the saddlebull's hunting tactic right now, walking around the edges, and by disturbing, you can actually see some of the fish jumping just ahead of it. They stir up the sediment and try and chase things. The water is not very visible, the visibility isn't great, so it's mostly working on ripples and... Oh. Clearly trying to chase things into the shadows. It's not a very precise manner of hunting. It's sort of height of extreme optimism, if anything. Stabbing the water, it's going to eventually get something. A lot of fish fleeing from it. You often get different birds together. Things like storks, pelicans, and spoonbills. Oh, speak of the devil. Who have we got that's just flown in? Hardy-dars. 2 hardy-dars that have just landed behind the stork. They have different feeding methods, and one bird's feeding might enhance the other bird's chances of catching. So they tend to sometimes feed together. The heron has got a different tactic entirely. Heron tends to stand still and ambush as opposed to the stork that's actively chasing things. Might even benefit the heron. Heron's just keeping that big beak of the stork on the opposite side of the stork. Almost like she's tickling the youngster. To drink or not to drink? The chance to sleep.
the water was too far away. It looked like it was contemplating going for a drink, and too full, water's too far.
Do you find it's mainly overseas visitors?
Question from Maryland, from Barbara, wanting to know what the circumstances would be for this pride to split up. Very difficult. No way of knowing, Barbara. A complete overhaul of coalition males and male dominance in the territory that would maybe result in some cats being hunted by new coalitions or new males coming in. Would probably be one of the only things that would maybe cause a major disruption. But even if they were temporarily split up, I think the cohesiveness of a pride like this is so strong that no matter how much they were pushed apart, they would vocalize and they would get together again in no time. They are a pride after all, and related. I couldn't imagine anything that would really split them up permanently, other than death. It's going to be an interesting thing looking for these stalks over the next few days, because I'm quite keen to see where the male stalk is. They're normally quite a tight-knit couple, unlike the heron. The heron will spend a day on its own feeding, but the stalks generally spend time together wherever they go. Unless they're sharing parental responsibilities at the moment, and that is also a possibility going into sort of breeding time for them. Unfortunately, don't know where the nest is. I think it's further north up on Buffelshoek, because it seems to be that's where they come in from every day, and there's a good possibility that he's been looking after things back home while she's been out catching frogs and fish. Need to talk to some of the guys that gone to Buffelshoek to see if they know any further. Ellen in Arkansas, nice to hear from you, Ellen, and a very good observation from Ellen, thinking that earlier on the stork was actually following the heron, and very much so, taking advantage of the fact that maybe the heron would chase something into the path of the stork, and it is very much a tactic of other storks, so that doesn't need a stretch of the imagination to think that this stork would do the same thing, and maybe hoping that the heron would be moving around a little bit more. It's just not really in the nature of the heron to walk around hunting. Heron tends to stand still and try and spear things that come close to it. But whatever movement the heron makes is always going to be an advantage to the stork, who does move around a lot more. Something moving away from the heron, out into the beak of the stork. Bless you. Heron's thinking, if I don't move, you don't see me. It's still intimidated by the stork.
What is there?
What is
Ghost elephant.
in the visitor's book?
Never heard of it.
Ghost elephant.
Too much gin?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly what it is. I think it's somebody with that.
No, I've never heard of.
No, we never do that. So we thought we would just.
There's a lovely book written by Watson called Elephantums. Indians have been, and that their being, their essence, like in the parts of the Narnia forest and Tsitsikamma, where you can almost imagine elephants having roamed the once and maybe seeing places where elephants have been and still feeling their presence. But I doubt that.
Anything to do with it.
Thanks, Mark.
Okay.
So now it's to do.
Have a lovely evening.
Yes, now.
Bye bye.
Cardinal about the stork's legs. Length of the stork's legs. Cardinal sent a tweet. I'm guessing they're probably about 2 feet. I'm guessing where that joint is, that kind of more like an ankle joint rather than a knee joint. I'm guessing that each section of the stork's legs are about 2 feet long. And then there was a question on the heron. No. Chris, I bet it is Chris in California, because you get the great blue. I used to see great blue heron in California when I was there, so it's possibly Chris in California. The difference in size between the grey heron and the great blue, I'm guessing, Chris, that it's about the same size. I think they're more or less the same size. Also, I just want to mention that I was having a bit of a chat with the vehicle. There were landowners next to us. They're really wonderful folks, and answering some of their questions too where I could. I didn't want to detract from our experience talking to you out there, but it is courteous for me to make conversation and keep good relations. But they are great people, so it was nice to chat to them. Landowners that are here probably because it's school holidays or long weekends. We're going into, I think, Freedom Day coming up soon. Used to be Workers' Day. Am I right?
I have no idea.
First of May.
I never know when public holidays are.
Yeah. Every now and then they decide to make a new one.
Yeah.
I remember seeing the great blue herons and egrets and a whole lot of birds at a wonderful brewery and bird sanctuary on the Monterey Bay area, right inside the bay, called Elkhorn Slough, very close to some landing. There's some fisheries, that something landing. Can't think of it now. But there's elk. The Elkhorn Slough was a beautiful place to see great blues and barn owls and all sorts of wonderful west coast birds. Used to spend a lot of time there. Clancy. Nice to hear from you, Clancy. Clancy's in Ohio, wanting to know if we get any kind of crayfish in these freshwater pans. Not really. When I say not really, Clancy, because we don't have crawfish, crayfish, freshwater crayfish. We do have freshwater crabs that occur, but the other crustacean that does occur is very, very tiny little shrimp, known as a fairy shrimp. And they can hardly be called crayfish, and they can hardly be of any commercial value other than maybe fish food. I think Clancy's about the same age as me, and go back to the 70s and the Marvel DC comics. At the back of the comics there used to be this ad for sea monkeys, and you get these dried eggs and you put them in water and they would hatch into these wonderful little creatures but the pictures on the back of the comics were that they had almost anthropomorphic features and anthropomorphic kind of actions, and you could build little castles for them, and of course that was just a gimmick to sell them. But ultimately those very creatures are fairy shrimp, a very, very tiny type of crustacean that lives in these waters. It has a very, very fast metabolism, so that when the rains come in the water, and they can lay eggs before the pans dry up. And to my knowledge, only females exist, and they're one of these creatures that has perfected the art of virgin birth, of being able to lay eggs with being fertilized by a male, the process that we call parthenogenesis. And very interesting little creatures, kind of like freshwater plankton in a way. Well, it's interesting to see the life that carries on regardless of the fact that there is a pride lion rolling around and trying to digest the remains of a buffalo, what we call a carpet of cats or flat cats. There we go, somebody's getting up to go lie down again maybe. They're uncomfortable. They're so full that they will constantly change position until such time as it is time to move along. She's heading probably up towards the road. Hello, John. A great question coming from John in Cape Town. Nice to hear from you, John. And great to hear from Cape Town, our mother city. Very pretty city. We're talking about that male that's just flopped his head down. John was saying, looks like he's got quite a considerable mane on him. At what age is he going to be ousted and forced to go out and form his own coalition? It's probably going to happen soon, John. I'm guessing he's probably in the region about 3, going on 3.5 now, or nearly, or thereabouts. And by the time he's 4, he's probably not going to be tolerated, and he's going to have to be bounced around, or he's going to have to go pretty far to find an area, because there are so many coalitions of males around here. It's going to be very interesting to see what is going to transpire with this young male, because he can't wander south. He can't wander to the west. Right, to the south, he's got other to the west there is the Majingilans, there are the Birmingham boys, there are the Salati males, there are the Matimbas, I'm guessing, are his fathers up this way. Maybe he could go to the east and into Kruger and hook up with some other males there, but it's going to be quite a difficult task for him to escape the attentions of the existing coalitions of males up here in this part of the Sabi Sand. And whilst I would love to give you an exact answer, or even the makings of an answer, unfortunately there are so many factors involved, or rather factors that have to be taken into account in this part of the world, based on so many other coalitions and based on the line dynamics that occur here right now. Moss Landing. Thanks, Gene, in Los Angeles. That's right, it was Moss Landing, just on the coast of Elkhorn Slough in Monterey, or just off of Monterey, just south of Aptos, just north of Monterey itself. She's going to drink a little. Being reminded by Final Control to mention Happy Earth Day. We kind of missed Earth Hour last month for some reason, I guess because we forget what day it is here sometimes, and I was hoping to lead up to Earth Hour last month and we missed it, but evidently it's Earth Day today, so Happy Earth Day. And also just a greeting to young Aaron, who's 8 years old and homesick from school. Aaron, I hope you're going to feel better. And I hope you don't miss too much school, but I hope you do feel better, Aaron. 8 years old. Was it Kansas City? Missouri. Pride of cats at our feet in a lovely peaceful evening. That's a lovely way to wrap up the day. We've had a fantastic day here at Djuma Game Reserve, and I want to thank all of you for joining us, especially for the interaction that we have. Most of what we do is enhanced so much by the interaction with you, the viewers, and the questions that you send in. It's really wonderful to be able to do that. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to find these cats again tomorrow. There's no telling how far they might decide to move, but we'll certainly pick up on their tracks. My guess is that they're going to be heading back north, because that is the bulk of their territory further north of us, and anything else that might be able to pop up their head. My name is Mark. Brian, thank you very much for being on camera this afternoon, and Thumb has been very appropriately dressed this evening too, from Tara back in Final Control, all of us here at WildEarth. I love you lots, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.